Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to our very first quick conversation. Quick conversation, what are we calling this? Quick conversations for the long haul of leadership. And I'm here with Todd Bolsinger. Hi, Todd. How are you doing?
Hello, Marcus. Nice to be with you.
Yeah. And so this is going to be a new regular thing on spiritual life and leadership. Todd is executive director of the Church Leadership Institute. Spiritual Life and Leadership is the podcast for the Church Leadership Institute. And we thought, let's do just every off week from the long episodes, we'll do a quick episode and we'll just talk about something having to do with adaptive leadership, especially as it pertains to ministry leadership. And so I'm excited about it. How are you feeling about it, Todd?
I think this is fun. These are the kind of conversations I usually have with ministry leaders, like when they call me on the phone and say, "Hey, can I just get a minute of your time because I want to talk through this thing?"
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
so we get to do
yeah.
that real
We get
time.
to do that. I'm excited. So the first quote we're going to look at has to do with sort of the theme of these quick conversations. And by the way, right, we call them quick conversations, but these are not meant to be for the sake of quick fixes, right? The
Right.
subtitle or the title of these episodes, Quick Conversations for the Long Haul of Leadership. So, what does that mean, the
Yeah.
long haul of leadership? So, we're going to kind of talk about that today as we look at a quote from Ronald Heifetz from his book Leadership Without Easy Answers. So I'll read it through a couple of times just so everybody kind of gets it, and then we'll unpack it together. All right, so here's the quote: In a crisis, we tend to look for the wrong kind of leadership. In short, someone who can make hard problems simple. But problems like we have been facing are not simple. Making progress on these problems, these less than simple problems, uh, demands not just someone who provides answers from on high, but changes in our attitudes, behaviors, and values. To meet challenges such as these, we need a different idea of leadership. All right, let me read it one more time. So, in a crisis, right, like many of us are facing today, in a crisis, we tend to look for the wrong kind of leadership. In short, right, we look for someone who can make hard problems simple. But problems like we have been facing are not simple. Making progress on these problems demands not just someone who provides answers from on high, an expert, right, but changes in our attitudes, behavior, and values. To meet challenges such as these, we need a different idea of leadership. So, Todd, help us begin to unpack this. What is he talking about here?
Well, perhaps the most important thing is to think about the kind of problem we're facing. And what
Mm,
Heifetz points to in this is what many of us are facing today. We are facing really complex, difficult problems. They're not
yeah,
problems that
yeah,
can be solved with a quick program or a short sermon series or a bit of wisdom from someone who's been there.
yeah.
Think about the pandemic. Somebody said that the pandemic was an experience that most of us went through that was four problems at once. It
Mm,
was we were facing a health crisis, we were facing an economic crisis that we're still facing, we're facing a crisis of social injustice that has led
yeah,
to political crisis, which has led to internal division. I mean,
yeah,
it's really complicated.
yeah.
And what we want to do in those moments is say, so what's the answer? What's the quick
Right,
fix? What's the
right.
thing that if I just do this, then it'll all get better? And really, what we're talking about is our problems where the only quick answer is, I don't know, but let's learn and figure it out together. And what this requires then is a kind of leadership for the long haul. How are we
Yeah.
going to learn and figure it out together?
Yes. Yeah, and I appreciate what he says here. He says making progress on these problems, right? These very complex problems and challenges that we all face, demands not just someone who provides answers from on high, right? I love the imagery, right? Someone who stands up on the
Mm-hmm.
pedestal, the expert, right? The one who has all the answers, and say, let me pour out my answers upon you, you know. But someone who can help us change in our attitudes, behavior, and values. Why is that important to be able to change our attitude, behavior, and values?
Yeah, so part of what Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky helped us understand is that the most complex problems usually are problems that we can't even see. And we're trying to
Mm,
solve a problem before we see it.
Yeah.
And what gets in the way is a belief mechanism, a
Hmm.
mental model, a value that we hold on to really, really deeply. Like somebody who believes that, church is only church if we have an organ,
Yeah.
or
Right.
that,
Right.
or that we're, or that the world is only good if I'm getting my way, right? There's
Yeah.
things that I think sometimes we believe about
Yeah.
things that we need to reshift. And what this requires us is to see before we solve.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that requires a longer work that is more humbling and
Yeah.
more about our learning and more also about letting go of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so hard, is that we're going to
Yeah.
have to learn and let go of what got us here.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Why don't we conclude? Let me give you an opportunity to just kind of talk about how Church Leadership Institute helps pastors and churches do that. How do we help pastors and churches lead adaptively like that?
Well, one of the parts that we're trying to say to leaders everywhere is that you are an expert in certain things. Most of the people that we
Mm,
work with are people who have a master of divinity or a doctor of
yeah,
ministry.
right.
They are reverend, they've got titles, and they're experts in certain things.
Yeah,
But you've probably hit a crisis that you're no longer an expert.
hmm.
You can't just preach your way out of this problem, or
Hmm.
you can't create a program, or you can't just give enough pastoral care to make it work. You have to
Yeah,
actually learn to lead differently. And at the Church Leadership Institute, we work with leaders who are really, really trustworthy, but who want to be able to lead a kind of transformation in their congregation that's going to require them to continue to learn and go through
yeah.
their own transformation.
Yeah, that's so good. So we're gonna keep talking about this in these quick conversations as well as in our full length episodes. But I'm really excited to be doing this with you, Todd, every other week or so. So thanks. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.